from the legislative assistant who organized it, and I cannot believe I'm writing this again, but we were canceling the meeting because of snow again. We got to put it up.
All right, good evening, everyone. So we call the meeting to order. We don't have a quorum today. And so I will go through a little of that. So in the review of the agenda, I have asked several of the speakers to postpone their presentations, professional stuff, update, evaluation, and discipline of employees and employee health and wellness presenters, so they wouldn't have to come here and present to a smaller group and a group that can actually make motions or decisions. So we'll postpone those to the February meeting with everybody, and then on the policies and procedures that we have to talk about tonight, we won't be able to vote on those or make motions on those because we don't have a quorum, but we can go ahead and look at those, see if there's anything we want to talk about in those. So with all of that being said, if anybody has any issues or comments about any changes of the agenda, okay. So then I will turn it over to Edward for public comment.
I'm told there is a nationwide shortage of blue paper, so we don't have the blue script today. I just think Mr. Tyndall would like to comment. Is there anyone else? Today's show.
So, Joe Tyndall, this is the fourth time I've spoken here. Because none of you has chosen to make a motion to repeal the censorship rules put in place a year ago, I have to conclude that all of you failed to cherish the free speech principles enshrined in the First Amendment to our Constitution. I find this tragic. So, greetings, fascists. I hope all of you had a lovely Christmas shutting down the free exchange of ideas. Give some thought. Who did you silence over the holidays? Or was there someone else at the festive table who was the chief enforcer of the orthodoxy, as you sat there enjoying the totalitarian protection of your sacred dogma? Thou shalt not let unimproved thoughts into any conversation. If you haven't figured it out, 2 months ago, America voted against the politically correct hinging nannies for conformance. America said no to third-wave intersectional feminist social justice warrior thought police and the white knights who, without a flicker of insight, do their bidding. A week ago, it was reported that Trump requested a list of programs that support these SJW idiots. I will be overjoyed to see these authoritarian morons defunded. They have done enough damage. If you don't know what I mean, ask. You might learn something. Or does the thought of changing your mind send you screaming for a safe space? Yes, because the Donald was the champion of free speech. He got my vote. So you weren't tuned into any of this stuff? Doesn't surprise me. In case you have forgotten all that Enlightenment nonsense they made you read in high school, a bunch of dead guys figured out long ago that the solution to free speech you don't like is to respond with more free speech, containing evidence and reasons that refute the claims you found offensive. Add to this an open mind and the world converges toward truth. Apparently, unlike you, I welcome this exchange. You don't like what I say? Challenge me to defend my ideas in open and respectful debate. Attacking and then running away like little Bobby makes you look pathetic. It is sad that these folks, you folks, fail to value the free exchange of ideas. Whether you are smart enough to understand or not, you are the vanguard in the battle to end democracy. Sig Heil, fascists.
Any other speakers? Thank you. Over to you, Bill.
And then I will open it up for Commissioner comments. Anybody would like to start? Going around.
I will just reintroduce myself. Okay. I'm Maury Denner, and I'm here representing the Civilian Review Board. Steve got caught up in some business stuff and couldn't be here, and glad to be back.
I apologize, I should have introduced you into that.
No, it's fine. Let me add one more comment. horrendous weather. We've all been dealing with it. And city employees have just done yeoman's work keeping things safe.
Mark, you didn't do updates from the CRB. It's normally.
No, we left the December meeting mid-case, and I believe next week or something, we're going to add some additional business to the new agenda, but we are still midstream in one issue.
Thank you. Karen, would you like to?
I'll just add from the Human Rights Commission that as we last met as a body, the Human Rights Commission passed a resolution encouraging the City Council to adopt in actual policy and ordinance a sanctuary city type statement. And so that will be coming before council soon, my understanding at least, for a quick resolution, reasserting the city's commitment to compliance with Oregon state law regarding fires effectively, the same kind of thing, and that work on an ordinance is underway as well. That will take a greater bit of time and effort. So that's the big news at the Human Rights Commission right now.
I too want to thank the police and public safety for all the work they've done in hard weather. I want to note the sorrow of the passing of Terry Miller, and thanks to all the officers and thanks to the today, my neighbor, my dad, for that. And just want to acknowledge the safety net that these folks provide for the less fortunate in our community. Thank them for it.
Yeah, this morning I got an email from an EPD officer who was very apologetic about putting this email up on the neighborhood forum. I'm not sure this is the right place to put it. And I called her and said it was absolutely the right place to put it. Where else can I put it? She was trying to get together resources for a homeless family that the officers had found sleeping on the floor of the emergency room at Sacred Heart University. And these officers are spending a great deal of time trying to get these folks into housing and keep just getting doors closed in their faces all over. And finally turned to social media and almost immediately found somebody who would put them into an apartment and help them out. I encourage that officer not to be shy about posting on like neighborhood association pages and so on, so stuff like that, because I think it's a good counterbalance to all the bad news that the media tends to cover anytime police make a mistake. So he says, when you're doing something right like this, tell people about it. So that's it. Nope, that's it.
And I would just like to thank everyone for showing us 9 voting on the quorum. Also want to say that 2017 has not started out well for police officers across the country. We've already had some that have been killed and one that was ambushed in Arizona as was this morning. It's just very sad that things have started out that way. So sorry for you guys. We appreciate every day things going out there. So we will not review the minutes. We can't vote on those. So we will move to the procedures and policies that we're going to review. Sergeant Williams, would you like to join us to talk about emergency medical aid?
So we've taken this one and morphed it. This is second or third. Commissioner talk about this one. The third, I think. So we've after some discussions about the last one, we've narrowed it down a little bit. We have the line of the beginning, the preservation of life is a fundamental duty for law enforcement. And establish that the expectation is that police officers will strive to fulfill that duty. We narrowed the scope and employee responsibility to police officers because that really is the focus of what the interest here is specifically. At least that's what I gathered from from communicating with folks here. It also clarifies some difficulties that it has with the training components. And so it just seemed like it unnecessarily made it more complicated to try to include all employees. So we narrowed it down to Eugene police officers will administer emergency medical aid in front of another person experiencing a medical emergency up to the level they've been trained, equipped, and are able. Officers will follow training and safety protocols and administration of aid. And then the training, it says the Eugene Police Department will provide CPR first aid and maternity training to all police officers. And then we move on to in-field considerations. That section, I believe the main change was removing the line that addresses primary police duties, and pretty much just narrows it down to the end, making sure it's a clean thing. And then we left the line at the end for the consideration of moving the injured person from the immediate area as a way of, rather than making the scene safe, you can get the person away from the unsafe scene. To go about that. What do we got for this one? Any comments?
It's well done, short and direct. I think a good statement of principles is almost always preferable. So, you did a good job.
I put myself in the queue. I personally really like that first line. The first
I'll thank the chief for that suggestion. And this one, I know that without the quorum, we can't vote to move it forward, and we can just table it until the next meeting. That's what you guys need to do, and do a final check off, or at least have the vote, or whatever you guys want to do.
Well, we can't vote on it or make it, but I guess it doesn't have to. You can't. Like it's the right. Then we can always bring it back after the fact and just say that
it was informative.
Yeah. You bet. Maybe I'll hold these up for another one. Okay.
All right, so I'll skip to 703 mostly because there were no recommended changes, and so it is as it was at the October meeting. And I don't believe that I even found any changes in my own in there either. So that's as it was on that date, and we'll be continuing to move forward as it is written. 702, on the other hand, there were a handful of changes. And I highlighted the changes to make it easier to see what those are. We added the personal property definition on the first page under 702.2. And then in 702.3 and 702.4, we have an identical line talking about doing searches in front of an ICD if possible. But nonetheless, it's pretty vague because that is covered under the search and seizure policy. And so to avoid duplicating too much, I just referenced that policy for getting those. There was a section, of course, I should have just struck it out here to show there was a section just above letter A in 702.4 that didn't really add much, and that was removed. But it's not there anymore, so I can't recall what to tell you what it was. So that request was made, and that section was removed. Under 702.6, for safety and security reasons, the search should be conducted at an authorized medical facility. That change was modified slightly where it said from an authorized facility, but it left it a little ambiguous as to whether or not it could hypothetically be done at the police department, which we're never going to do any sort of a cavity search at the police department. We just clarified that so that there's no question that it needs to be done by a doctor at a medical facility. And then those were, there was a Nope, that was it. So those were all the requested changes, and they were all made with that language. So then, these policies as well, unless there's any significant concern because of the timeline for how long it's been and the need to get this pushed out, we are going to move forward with publishing the policies next week. And then we can bring it back again if you'd like to have a final look over once we're at the forum at the next speaker meeting. So when you get to bring it back for this week, okay.
Anybody have any other comments or questions on this form?
I didn't see a reference to impounded wound vehicles. And I know it's covered in a separate.
No, that's
all I see.
Okay.
But should it be referenced? And I say that only because it's something that came before civilian review last year.
Yeah, the vehicle impound policy is a quite extensive policy in and of itself, and it has a large section. And actually, we talked about taking some big search reference out of the impound policy, but it really was fairly specific in different circumstances, and so because they really are pretty standalone. And the impound policy addresses the search issues. And that one, just like these, has gone through city legal review as well as the office legal review for search and seizure and liability. And the impound policy is one that we're trying to get changed also. It's on the short list. There's one last issue I'm waiting on a legal update for, and then that one will be getting pushed out. And there's some urgency to that because it's a case law stuff out there. So, thank you. Any other thoughts or concerns?
I just want to say thank you. We were pretty involved in this discussion of this. I know I had a lot of questions about it, so thank you for that. And thanks for the responsiveness and updating it. It's always nice when it gets brought back to it and we get interested too.
Yeah, you got that. I appreciate that.
Yeah.
Good. Anything else?
So we will quickly on to the chief's report.
Well, December's kind of short. So there's not a ton to report on. There's an event at the federal building downtown supporting law enforcement and firefighters. So I attended part of that. I think it was the first year that they've done this for us, so it might be something for us next year. I can send you the information on that if you'd like to pass it on. Okay, the annual NAMI dinner was last month, and Bill Rankin received an award from the Big Coach downtown, and training of the student troops. We have 3 command leadership team trainings or days every year. For this most recent one, we had the Speed of Trust training. This is a program that was developed by Stephen Covey's son, Stephen Covey, and he wrote a book, and it was reduced to an 8-hour training program. So we invited the EPA board, and they joined us that day. It was good training. It was the kind of stuff that most of us learned in our lives, and all concentrated in the program. Then I do ride-alongs now and again. Did one out at the Conf Center, and that's a very impressive thing to do. So if you haven't done a ride-along at the Communication Center, I really encourage you. It's pretty high. The exec team meets off-site for a full day or two, a couple of times a year, 2 or 3 times a year. And this one was had to do with what our priorities are going to be for 2017, and also wrap up some the city manager's budget proposal for this next year. And then the local law enforcement executives every month over lunch and get caught up and collaborate. And there's some interesting things that happened on the street. So the work we do is all about. And then some of our focus, considerable focus for 2017 will have to do with downtown safety and safety in the parks. The city's supplemental budget, which we will spend between January and June, committed $500,000 to improve the conditions downtown and in the parks. $200,000 of that goes to the police department. $100,000 goes to facilities downtown. $100,000 goes to parks and open space, and I believe the other $100,000 goes to managing events in the downtown area. So the division managers from the departments that are represented by those things I just mentioned, parks and open space, planning and development, police, and facilities, will be working together in order to use that funding in order to improve safety and activities down there. So that's what the next 6 months will involve. And then we're getting ready for Inauguration Day. And I remember that on Election Day, there were riots in Portland and other major cities around the country. We had some demonstrations here on around Election Day, mostly originating over on campus. They're pretty peaceful, but they did occupy the streets, and they didn't have permits to do that. We're expecting that there will be events. We know that there are planned events on the UVille campus on the evening of the 20th, and then there's a women's march on Saturday the 21st. It starts at the courthouse, and we'll end up at Wow Hall. They got a parade permit for that. We're working closely with them. And then we're planning for the unexpected. So hopefully everything goes smooth. And then what you see in here is, well, I should tell you that on Tuesday, the Crime Analysis Unit presented their first rendition of what they think would be a useful data-led policing presentation for senior staff to receive once a month, so that we can start effectively, modeling the police department to most effectively deal with the crime that we've got. We've delayed going back to those presentations for a while because I think we got too granular in what we were looking at for a while in our level, and also because we have so much work on our plates right now in the department. It was hard to focus on crime reduction with all the hiring and other work we can do. So you'll be seeing those presentations here in my packet from now on. But all I have for you here is the concentration of where crimes for calls for service occur. And in the map on the left, the heat map on the left, what you see is that it's really downtown and in that corridor between downtown and West Jefferson. So it really kind of ranges from the West University neighborhood through downtown, north through Washington Jefferson Park and Whitman. That's where the highest concentration of calls are in Eugene. And the reason we looked at this is because neighbors in Whitaker are concerned that we don't respond as quickly to their request for service as we do in other parts of town. It's not possible to do that analysis for us. We don't have personnel to do it. We don't have the software to do it. We may not actually have the data points out there to do that. But it would be interesting to know. But what we do know is that this is where a significant part, I don't know if it's 90% or 75%, but a significant part of our calls for service occur in this very small geographical area. And so in the long run, we got to think about how are we concentrating our officers in order to maximize, in order to get the most out of it, reduce our response time to calls for service and maximize the benefit of a presence of a police officer. And on the right is a map of officer-initiated calls for service, and you'll find that it's pretty similar, not entirely similar to those that come from the public. What you see, in the one on the left, you see this bright mark ahead of just north of the largest heat spot. You see that? That's the building we're in right now. That's so people come here to report crimes or to make reports. And then I also learned in service the other day that some officers
use that when they check on some residences in order to not reveal the residents that they're checking on here, so that might explain some of it. And then the heat spot on the map on the left is around the Four Corners area. So it's probably traffic crashes and then criminal activities and drugs and things. Probably. Yeah, that might be it. That's what that is. And then we'll find a better way to display this thing on the last page. It's basically a summary of not all crimes, but major categories of offenses that track. And the bottom line is crime last year was down about 6% in all categories. Assaults are up, and that's been going on for about 5 years. And Eugene is not unusual. I think Springfield has had assaults going up. The state has seen assaults climb, simple assault, aggravated assault. So we don't know. I don't know exactly what that means. One theory is that domestic violence is being reported at a better rate. Probably for us locally, a significant part of that can be attributed to growing chronically homeless population. When we do heat maps on assaults, they are in residential neighborhoods in the downtown core and the Washington Township parks. So I think probably that chronically homeless population is responsible for some. Motor vehicle thefts went up this year, which is against a trend of thefts going down. So not everybody sold their 1997 Honda Civic that when they do, when those finally go out of service, these numbers will really improve. Let's see. There's another one out here that I thought was interesting. Drug abuse is, most of these numbers are pretty much the same. Percentages are small. The liquor and tobacco violations, number 22, came down. Now that's mostly self-initiated activity, and what you'll see in the near future is that our calls for service are slowly climbing, and there's a corresponding drop in self-initiated officer activity, and that might be that figure here might be explained by that. That's pretty much it.
Question there. So in prostitution, obviously the percentage increase, 207% staggering, but even the raw number increase for arrests is a fairly significant increase. Yeah. Was that an area of focus over the past year, or do you have any sense of what the cause for that significant jump is?
Yeah, we don't really have street walkers in Eugene, so it's not that kind of prostitution. These numbers represent the stings, the sex trafficking stings that we've done. Some of the FBI and some independent. So it's more an indication of more enforcement, not more. We don't know what the level of sex trafficking is. There's different things to measure.
In order to give them
It was a really acrimonious meeting between San Francisco police and a group of senior citizens years ago who were complaining exactly the same thing you're hearing in Whitaker. Is we call and it takes forever. We have friends in this other neighborhood and they call and the cop shows up in 5 minutes. What's the deal? And bit of discussion, just asking some simple questions, kind of revealed an answer that may be helpful to you, which is when an officer actually makes an arrest based on the call, how much time are they off the street booking? And that turned out to be much of a problem. It's that the minute the officers got finished with booking somebody into the central jail and get back out to the district, they're on another call. Often make an arrest, and they're gone in an hour or two. And that turned out to be a lot of what the problem was it was actually reducing the number of cars on the street because they were doing their job. So other than changing the amount of time it takes to book someone in or travel time to the central jail, there wasn't a way to change those numbers except by making fewer calls than 911, which is not much more. But it's something to look at.
Well, there's all kinds of explanations. One is that it isn't true. It's not true that we get a different response time in Whitaker. There can be a day where 2 Wednesdays where we have the same staffing, and on one Wednesday we have 30 calls on the call screen, and the officers are just going from one to the other, and they're just simply not available. The next Wednesday, there are hardly any calls on the call screen, so when the call happens in the neighborhood, we're able to respond immediately. So, without looking at a year's worth of response numbers, it's hard to know if there is a difference. So that's part of it. And perceptions can be pretty influential, even if not accurate, because we get the city gets a lot of complaints about the increase in traffic volume on 29th near Willamette Street, for instance. But we've been measuring that traffic for a couple of years, and it's actually going down there. But neighbors feel like it's going up. So, some things even data, some compression to the data. Yeah.
Lori, and then next one.
Two things that I saw. The response to rapes were the same for both years, I believe, 7 and 7. And I just wondered,
Those are homicides.
those are homicides. Okay. The other thing is, now with the authority of the U of O Police Department, what does that do, or how has it impacted call loads for service? Do you have a sense of that?
Yeah, it's helped. It's been a slow transition. They seem to be handling more cases that are, I guess, as severity increases, they're more likely to call us for assistance. But it definitely helped in the past, I would say, a year to 2 years. Initially, when they got firearms, didn't change anything. They were kind of in the thick of getting people qualified, getting the proper training, so they weren't focused on the calls for service. But it's helped, but we still. In fact, I got assigned a case today that happened at 15th and Aldridge, so we still do plenty of work over there.
They handle most of the crimes that happen on the campus proper. They might make a judgment call when calls them off if it's asleep. They're investigating some rape cases. One of our retired sergeants works over there and investigates those. They have a collaborative relationship with the district attorney's office. So the DA, UOPD, U of O's Title IX, Title IX matters, and our BCU Sergeant Chris Martis, they all work together pretty closely. It's collaborative, very. In terms of sexual assaults, yes, it's pretty collaborative.
You may want to share that knowledge. I haven't seen any actual evidence here, but one of the large concerns with the oversight for UOPD was that those types of cases might get diverted from even being considered in the criminal justice process. So advertising that we do have this close relationship, I think, might alleviate some of those public concerns, which are, to clarify, based in other cities, not from the city here.
It's a pretty tricky area, how Title IX and the Department of Education's expectations to make all this pretty difficult. Oh, do well. But I meet quarterly with the DA, the chief from UOPD, the university's general counsel, our city attorney's office, and other sundry administrators from the U of O. And one of the subjects is this very thing. And so the Title IX administrator, or dean at U of O, is a part of this group. I know from that they're working pretty closely. So that's a good idea. I think we can do that.
Yeah, I had a question about the reporting and about VCUs. I'm sorry, about the University of Oregon. That area now that they control, their territory, do they make their own separate reports to the Uniform Crime Reporting System? And do we not take any of that in? sort of like the River Road area where Payne County has their own reporting and then we have ours, so we don't really know. Is that what's going on there?
Yeah.
So we don't keep any record if someone's raped on campus. That's not in our report anymore. They report that and we don't have it in our stats as well.
Well, that would be true. I don't know if we're duplicating that report to make sure it's in the system. Do you know, Chris?
No, I know that they're very much patrol-based, so they're fully capable of taking those initial reports. That yeah, oftentimes they're gonna land at APD anyway, and we would have our own case number.
You know, something as serious as a homicide, for instance.
They're not going to take that.
That would, yeah.
They're not going to take the homicide.
Okay.
But it is a problem that we aren't sharing crime report info or data. We don't have it in a single place. So they're getting a contract with the same vendor that we use for records management. So we'll all be writing reports in the same system.
Oh, that's good. Good.
I understand that you and the command staff had a meeting with our new mayor and city council members. Yeah. Any words on that?
It was spectacular.
That's what I heard on the other side.
No, it was an informal meeting with Mayor Dennis, Councilor Central. It was our regular senior staff meeting on Tuesday morning. We only talked for about an hour. Mostly it was introductions and summarize what we do and answer your questions.
Mayor gave you a hard sort of meeting.
Yeah.
So that's is going to end our agenda early tonight, so we'll do closing comments. And, start with Edward.
Yeah. One of the commissioners is not present tonight, asked me after the last meeting I attended, where do you get all those great news articles that you give to her and then send them? I explained that some of that comes from just internet news searches, robots that I've set up to, grab key phrases, whether it's Eugene police reform, what have you. And some of it's the result of having worked with police command staffs for well around 45 years now. And so keeping in touch with a lot of those people through the miracle of the internet. And I get a lot of best practices, documents, and pointers, and so on. So I'm happy to introduce any of you who are interested to those people who I'm in touch with in other cities. If you want to communicate directly with them, things like best practices, how they're handling something there that maybe are not realizing here.
Yes, I just wanted to share a couple of things. In service this month, I asked officers what was important to them that you knew. And I'll just share a couple of things that were consistent that I asked. One is that they really encourage you to take ride-alongs. They learn so much when you see firsthand what their work is like. They want you to know that when police are demonized, it makes their job so much harder. And every once in a while we'll support a group on a march, and even marchers will, put their hands up and say no shoot, when we're there to help them. And it's discouraging sometimes. For the most part, I can tell you that what we get from the community is very, very good. In 2000, I think it was 5 or 6, we did the Magellan study, funded the Magellan study, which showed that we need about 300 sworn personnel at EPD in order to do the job that the community wanted us to do, the community policing, and also to keep up on the demands. We have 191 sworn personnel, and that includes me. I don't think any cases every year, so I'm not helping very much. So when we focus on the downtown and the parks, trying to make it safer there, it means we're not doing work someplace else, and that's just a reality sometimes. We have overtime funding this year to do the downtown parks, but even then, it takes us away from other parks. And then with the, it seems like there's been a growth in numbers of people who suffer from severe mental health conditions and also access to firearms.
And probably one of my biggest concerns, and I know I'm not alone in the police department, is that just heightens the risk that our officers face every day. And there's been a couple of recent examples of officers who have survived what could have been deadly force encounters, but certainly have all the makings of those because of their quick thinking and their good skill and abilities. And it's just, and then also in the back of every patrol officer's mind is the concern that they'll be about what it's going to be like to be second guessed by me and the community and the media. And all those things combine to create a fraction of a second of hesitation that I wish didn't exist. But it's the reality that we've got. So I'm hoping that I've asked our training section to constantly refine what we do in training in order to improve confidence in decision making, particularly in deadly force encounters. PERF provides a model for de-escalation training, which improves safety for officers. And the training that they provide provides a decision-making model for welfare safety for officers. So I'm hoping that to some extent that'll be helpful. That's all I got. Yeah, I'd just like to thank all the commissioners for coming out tonight after a couple of delays here in this weather and whatnot. It's good to see us back together again. Especially like the fact that we didn't have a forum tonight, so big kudos to everybody who did make it. Thank you.
Thank you. Having additional, I'll send some notes to Steve and expect him to be here next.
Well, I just have a quick comment that I would like to do right along, and it's been on my mind, and people have mentioned doing it, and I have no idea how to arrange that, or we'll talk to you, or whatever, so I'll email you. Okay.
Thank you. All passed,
Can you email me about it right along too, please? I think that'd be interesting. Additionally, the funding for public safety downtown. I know from the Human Rights Commission there's always concern when there's a mention of downtown and law enforcement with troublesome behavior, predispositions and assumptions, and so it would be helpful from the Commission's perspective as a liaison to get some information that I could share about what that might look like. I don't know if a briefing is appropriate to the HRC or if it's even the right move to take, but I do suspect that early and preemptive communication would be a good way to initiate a dialogue and diffuse potential concerns that may or may not be grounded in actual facts.
That's great.
I rode along with Jeff Roth probably 3 years ago. I think he's still on the floor too.
3 years ago.
23. Oh, 23. 23. Have you gone there?
He's been a detective for a while.
Detective, all right. Well, I guess you won't give me a ride on. But I did have to testify grand jury about a burglary test. It was a good experience. I recommend it, even if Jeff can count it. I should probably do it again. It's been 23 years. I would note, I've been tracking the downtown issues as well. The city's engaged a contractor to give them advice, and I forget their name, about how to best deal with some of these concerns. And I think everybody's common goal is making them safe and pleasant places to be for everybody.
Right.
So it's focused a lot on programming in the problem areas. Food carts, I think we saw those police officers, and we saw food carts, and then they had some things like when my sister took her son to some of them, and generally they had good reviews. Those are the things that I think to be sort of easiest to get scheduled. I think there may be some design issues coming on, but those take longer and need more money to do. So I think that's the way they're going, and I like the feel of that as a way of, not causing more conflict and solving the problem. Or, not using hammer and screwdriver is a better tool. Thank you also, there was an officer, and unfortunately I didn't write his name down, but he has an apostrophe in his last name, and so he's short. But he responded to an attempted burglary of our building. That was, I think he took it more seriously than we did. I really appreciated the timely and attentive service at our business. Thank you. Yes, that's it.
Oh, yeah.
Sorry. That's 3 letters and then an apostrophe. I wish I could remember. Very polite of you.
Yeah, no, not sure.
I didn't even know I was
Well, I will say, I agree, the ride-along is great. I went on one back before Christmas in November with Party Patrol, and but it's an opportunity for us to explain to officers what we do as commissioners, because all the ride-alongs that I've been on, I've usually done that because the officer, most of them are graveyard shifts, but they don't really know what we do, or they confuse us as if we're part of the CRB or we do the same thing as them. So it's a great opportunity to explain what we do and why we're here. Also really appreciate knowing that. So, and it's also really good to see what they do out there. But when we sit in here and talk about policy. Thanks everyone. I appreciate everybody. We'll see you next month, and we'll have a very full agenda. We had the groups because we had a long meeting with the CRB.
Well, the funny thing is we share a driveway with individually. And the thing about when we were on the street, they really don't want to irritate the news. Because we get calls, but otherwise we get calls, right? So we love being right there. It's like 24/7. Right? Well, it goes drastically wrong, they'll call.